I
like
could,
$5.
but it was going to be free.
Yeah. I mean, if they were still doing the tasting, I would have $1
My favorite one that she had, and I wish I'd have stolen it from her, was one that she got when she was working a wedding, and it was like gold, and it was real pretty.
My roommate has one that's RJ Rockers, and then on the back it's the Love What You Love, like, red logo.
Oh, I gotcha.
Sweet. And they have a Palmetto Trail Ale one, too.
The Hubcast is now live.
Oh.
You want me to go this way?
What? All of us?
One chair, one inch.
All of us?
Everybody?
And you can also like move the camera.
This is undercover karaoke. We're
No.
just gonna sing Bowie all night.
That'd be great. I said it and I'll say it again. The fact that we got to share this earth, at least for me, a brief little while with David Bowie, is remarkable. We're live. Okay, so this is Hubcast episode what? 27. And we're live from the Growler House in the back room where it's a little bit quieter because Bill and Tad are playing their music and they sound great. Also, there's a special going on here at Growler House. It's the St. Patty's Day special. It's these great, awesome potatoes with a bunch of sauces and then an awesome beef sandwich with a bunch of sauces. And I don't have the description in front of me, but it's awesome. You should come get it.
What? Do you like it?
Oh, it's fantastic. Oh, wait. They came in here and I was like, Janine, buy this. And she was like, I already ate. And I was like, well, that sucks. You're going to eat again.
I ate one potato.
She ate one potato.
It was good.
It was good potato. Also get some beer if you're over 21. And have a good time. Also, if you're not able to join us live here at Growler House, join us on Facebook and write stuff in the comments. Give us some stuff to talk about. If we say something you're like, that's stupid, say that's stupid. Like, let us know. Interact.
Or if you like it, let us know that too.
No positive reinforcement here.
Okay.
So this month we've sort of had this trend of having female activist, feminist guests on this show. And are we continuing that trend, Dennis? We're continuing that trend?
We hate women.
All right. Women's history. All right. Representation. All right. Okay.
Oh gosh, I wouldn't say that. I would not say that. Yeah.
All right.
True.
So,
Yeah.
right. I'm Ethan. Producing is Dennis, as always. And Janine is one of our guests. And Ada, right? Ada?
Yes,
Ada. Ada is our other guest. I've heard a lot about you leading up to this podcast this week. You seem pretty cool. Pressure's on to back it up.
Yeah. I've just mastered the art of seeming cool without actually being cool, so...
Oh, okay. That was my one Jimmy Fallon laugh for the night. Okay, so last time we were here, we were sort of... What were we talking about last time?
We were mostly like talking about the same stuff we talked about the week before. We were like, wait, the first week it was really loud and drunk people were yelling. Let's clarify some things. I mean, we talked about a lot of stuff. We talked about unsolicited dick pics.
Right, we did.
And whether or not we get them.
And if you send them to Lena,
how-
we've all seen them.
True. We talked about how the internet and like privacy settings is kind of like the online version of like, well, what was she wearing? Like, if you don't have all of your stuff on private, and if you like do online dating, well, you're like asking for dick pics. Not true.
Not at all.
Which, yeah, kind of like the equivalent of like, you know, the real world. We talked about that the time before. We talked about like compliments.
Oh yeah, we did. We had a long, yeah. So, Ada,
Yeah.
what is your area of expertise in this field?
Well,
Other than being a woman,
Other
than
than
being
having a uterus.
which I'm assuming.
yes, I identify as a woman.
It's 2017. Can't assume gender.
Yeah, my pronouns are she, her, hers.
All right.
So, yeah, I talk about this stuff a lot with Speaking Down Barriers. I'm a facilitator, and we hold monthly conversations about race and race-related topics and gender. The one from this past first Mondays, every first Monday of the month, it was about women's history, and the title was called Women Matter, and so does blank. Kind of talking about how, throughout history, women's movements have changed and what they were rooted in from the beginning and how that was different for different groups of women and people who identified as women. So yeah, I just talk about this stuff a lot. And on my own podcast, we always talk about...
so what is your podcast?
It's called Cork Team Podcast. Cork Team is kind of like, I don't know if you've heard, like... Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's a play on a twerk team. I don't know if you've seen people...
No.
It's fine.
I'm unfamiliar.
It's fine. But it's called Quirk Team. We talk about nerdy things, anime, comics,
Nice.
Shows, video games, all under the lens of gender, race, sexuality, all that stuff. And we just finished our first season, and we're on a break now, but we're on Facebook, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Spotify, most places you can find us. So, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I'll have to go look that up. Cool. Janine, who are you?
I'm Janine. Yeah, I would say, like in this context of like kind of talking about gender and intersectionality and stuff, it's something that I do spend a good bit of time thinking about. The term activist, I feel like, brings up a lot of different pictures that I'm not necessarily. I don't think I
So like,
fit into all
like
of
the
this, but
like some people might go straight to feminazi or something like that.
yeah. I mean, I'm like, I call my congress people and I go to protests and things like that, but I also,
You write congressman?
yeah, not as regularly as I should, but I do.
Well, I don't think anybody does it as regularly as they should.
No, several
meaning
times a
most
day.
of yeah, right.
But, no,
Well,
I
okay.
mean, I have contact with
So
my
there
congress
is this
people.
really cool app.
Wait,
No.
is it like Tinder for Congress?
It's not Tinder for Congress. What it is, I
know what
can't.
this app.
Yeah, Vote Spotter. Go download
wait,
Vote Spotter. It just like tells you exactly like who the people that are over your district or who are your lawmakers and.
Okay, no, it's not
No.
exactly like Tinder for Congress.
No,
Never
just
mind.
a lot of secretaries.
It's this app where it like says what it like talks about a bill, and it like doesn't give you that much information, and you have to like choose whether you're for or against it.
Oh, it matches
and then
you
it
with
like
people.
no, it doesn't. It's not an actual dating app, but people
That'd be
have
so
like
cool, though.
compared it to Tinder because it's like you just have to like make a choice one
Choose.
way or another.
Yeah,
Okay.
But then it like aggregates data based on what people said, and it's like, well,
Okay.
it gave you like 3 lines. Like it's much more complicated than that.
Right. Okay.
Anyway.
So Vote Spotter, what it does is you like put in your address where you live, and it gives you who are your lawmakers,
sounds
and it
much more useful.
and it tells you exactly what bills they voted on and which way they voted, and if you agree or disagree. And if you agree, you can send an email saying, "Hey, I agree with you on that." If you disagree, you can say, "I disagree with you on that," and it'll like give you a format to send it straight to that person's inbox.
Cool.
And it's really cool. So go get Vote Spotter. We're doing a lot of plugs.
Yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, I do want to say too that like I think for me, just in talking about like feminism and generally like intersectionality, it's been something that like I've been thinking about a lot over the last few years, and it's like definitely been a journey and something that I'm still like working on understanding and being more sensitive to and things like that. I studied sociology, and so that was like kind of the first step in being like, you're wrong about all that stuff. And like the world's really messed up. I joke that I like majored in cynicism.
But you majored in cynicism.
I did.
Yeah.
But
Right.
it was really wonderful, and I think it, though it gave me a lack of marketable skills, it helps me really have a lens for how I look at like everything, and every job I've had since then has been very formed by that, and so, and all of my relationships I think too. So it's kind of, been building, like, I think I realized that, like, okay, like, feminism's important, and, like, no, we're not equal, and then, like, talk to friends, and they're like, well, also racism, that's still a thing, and, and realizing, and then in conversations about intersectionality, realizing that, like, you know, okay, so yeah, women had the right to vote in 1920, but, like, not all women, like, white ladies. And
Sure,
so, you
yeah.
know, stuff like that. So, anyway, that's kind of where I'm at in, like, Women's History Month and feminism in general, of just, like, I feel like we've been talking a lot about just, like, general, like, what do women deal with? And, like, yes, that's a thing. Like, kind of just like, wait, what? That happens?
We did have some of that.
Yeah, but then...
Catcalling was the one that sort of blew my mind.
A lot of that.
catcalling a
Yeah,
lot?
a lot.
Yeah.
And, oh my gosh.
Barbaric.
Yeah,
Gosh.
they have. So, yeah, I mean, if you want to, like, jump and talk about anything that...
Yeah, what you were saying, the first thing you said about activism and how even though you're calling, congressmen, congresspeople, it's always this idea that if you're not, like, on the front lines all the time, you're not really an activist. And
Right.
that's such a harmful thing because, the ability to be out there, there's some privilege tied into that and
Oh,
everything
yeah.
and how that works.
Like,
and
can you take off work to go to this
exactly,
protest?
like, yeah, when the day without women, I
Yeah.
couldn't not go to work that day. Like,
No,
I was
me
still at
either.
work, and it was like, and as long as your activism looks so different. Like
Yeah.
Trina, my co-host on my podcast, we were talking about she's an artist. She draws comics, and we were talking about how it's an act of activism for her to be drawing queer people, Black people, non-traditional, like things
yeah.
you don't see in comics. Like that's that's a form of activism for her, and that's like it doesn't have to be always picket signs and even though that's great, I do that all the time.
Yeah.
But it's like it's so different and it can look so many different ways.
Yeah, well, and I think, like, it's got to be both. Because
Yeah.
that's something that, like, I mean, I'm not going to go ahead and just, like, assume I know where you fall politically. But I will just go ahead and say I'm
Do
not a
you lean
fan
this
of the
way?
current
Oh,
administration.
of course not.
I tend to lean towards
This way.
the left.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, yeah, so, I've been dealing with lately, like, feeling that kind of desperation of, like, oh my gosh, I have to speak out about everything, and, like, if we don't, like, keep up with every single law and, like, protest everything, like, we're all going down.
Yeah.
And, like, people are going to start getting locked up and deported.
Yeah.
And I do kind of think that that's true still, but I've been realizing, like, as kind of the emotion of it's come down a little bit, like, I'm still planning on going to protest, and I'm still,
Yeah.
If somebody
What was the
says
last
something
protest you
stupid.
went to?
It was the march that we did in Spartanburg.
All right, when was that?
It was maybe like a month ago.
All right, is there going to be
It
one
was around
coming up?
Valentine's Day. I don't know. There's a Upstate Resist or something is a group on Facebook that has a lot of events. So I do go to protests, but I'm sort of starting to, I don't know, reevaluate that a little bit. Like I've noticed that a few of the like, just kind of the catchphrase activism tends to be can
It's a
be
buzzword.
divisive.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and even just like wearing like a feminist t-shirt or like a phrase, I think even if it is meant to be like empowering for some people or welcoming for some people, I mean, if you're a Trump supporter and you see me with a t-shirt that says like trample the patriarchy, or not even a Trump supporter, I shouldn't say that. If you're a Trump supporter and I have a t-shirt that says we are all immigrants or something, like, you're gonna see that and you're gonna be like, I don't want to talk to that girl, she's crazy. Generally, I mean, maybe not. Okay, I'm making a lot of generalizations. Maybe you just voted for him because of the Supreme Court nominations, I get that. But, if you generally have really different views than me, I'll just say that. And, like, if I, like, have this statement, like, on my person or, like, on a sign or something like that, I do think there's a place for that, but I also am, like, starting to reevaluate, like, that method a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I'm left with, like, well, then what do I do?
Yeah.
But it's like, I saw somebody with a Trump bumper sticker on their car the other day, and I was like, well, I probably don't like them. And I was like, come on. Yeah, you probably have a lot in common with them, actually, as, like, a human being, but...
Yeah, there's a lot in that. Like, I sometimes I see those things and it feels it can feel insincere also, like the person wearing the shirt. It's kind of that bandwagon mentality,
Right.
So that is a thing.
Is it, like, trendy?
Right, yeah. Is it trendy to be, to have the pink hats, which that's the thing that we can talk about as well because that was a big thing.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, there's like safeties in that as well. Like, am I going to feel safe wearing a shirt that has my political views in such a political climate, especially people of color, Muslim people who wear hijabs. Like, there's so many things tied into having visible signs of your political views. Mm-hmm. So it's such a hairy thing, and I work at Wells Fargo, and that's a lot. There's a lot with that. I'm a banker there, and it's a lot. I feel a lot of dissonance already working there with the Dakota Access Pipeline and everything going on with them. But
I have a bank account with them, and I'm like, shoot, I'm really bad at finances. I don't know how to transfer banks, but I think maybe I should.
Yeah. And people are all the time like, Ada, I know you work there, so I don't want to leave Wells Fargo because I don't want to. They feel like they're directly affecting my paycheck.
Yeah.
So it's like, I definitely want to show as much as I can that I'm in this place, that I don't agree with their ideals, but I can't always wear a feminist shirt or a resist shirt.
Right.
So it's tough to say if what works for me is not going to work for you.
Right.
And I don't know, maybe you wearing that shirt is the most active you've been in standing up for something, and that's a beautiful thing. It's just it's going to be something different for everyone, so it's hard to.
Well, yeah, and I think like stuff like that. On the one hand, I'm like, we should be making statements, and like I do think for people that are on the same page and might not know it, like it is good. Like when somebody comes in to work and I like see that they're wearing like a Women's March shirt, I'm like, okay, we probably agree on a lot of stuff. Like I didn't know that about you, cool.
Yeah.
But the flip side's also true, where like if somebody who's not on that end of the political spectrum sees that, they're like, well, like it can be divisive, and it's like all of a sudden like walls are going up and like you're not gonna find your common ground because it's like I'm projecting what my beliefs are like on this one issue, and then like we're both gonna go ahead and assume a lot of things about each other, and like I don't know, I don't know how to really facilitate discussion between people that are super on different playing fields though. Like I think speaking down barriers is amazing, and I've been trying to go to the events, and I keep having to work on all of them, but I saw that one and I really wanted to go, the feminism one.
It was really great, and I mean there has to be a certain willingness to talk, and speaking of barriers, that we have a community guideline, a community agreement, which sounds kind of cheesy, when you think about it, but it's so important so that no one feels silenced. No one feels unsafe in the space. No one feels like they're not being heard. It's like, it's really important because if people are coming in on opposite sides of, their political viewpoints, it can be a really scary place, especially when you're having to uncover your biases and talk and dig really deep in there, which it gets pretty deep at times. So, but I mean, I can definitely see how, having seeing someone on their shirt that says, or, I'm trying to think of what would make me say I'm not talking to you. If someone had a shirt, maybe. If I see people come into the bank all the time and they have "Make America Great Again" hats, and I still have to treat them, give them the same level of customer service that I would anyone else. But inside, I just, I've automatically assumed lots of things about them, and I can see how that would be a bad thing, divisive, like you said. But a part of me is still like, if this is how they feel, if they agree with some of this, it's safe for me to say I'm not gonna be in a space with you unless you've shown that you're willing to talk about these things in a way. And I guess me as well. They, they might not want to talk to me about these things unless I've demonstrated that I want to talk in a civil way with them. And then I also am faced with this, like, as an oppressed person or a marginalized person, it's not my responsibility to talk to you about your biases and your issues, so.
Like, I don't have time to, comment on every ignorant thing you say on Facebook.
Yeah, and
just the ones that really stay.
I mean, sometimes. Like, I've got, a time slot budgeted out every week. No, I'm just kidding. I should, though. So, with speaking of barriers, do you feel like, do people generally come in from kind of all ranges, or is it kind of a specific group of we've at least been thinking about this and we're kind of on that path to understanding? Have you gotten kind of all ends of the spectrum, or who usually comes?
At times there are definitely, you can feel it in the room too, the energy is a lot different in the room, but usually it's pretty, people, we have a lot of regulars who go, and they are people who think critically about these things, who want to talk about it and figure out a path to, I don't want to say fixing it, but a path of togetherness and community. But yeah, sometimes you do get people who are just completely, completely different, or have a completely different viewpoint.
Well, that's good, because if you didn't have that, you just have an echo chamber,
it's
and those are echo chambers are the last thing you want.
Yeah.
Because then the second somebody challenges you with an opposing argument, you're thrown off guard if all you've ever been in is an echo chamber.
Yeah.
That's important for anybody if you're ever thinking about running for any sort of office. Don't just stick around people who have your opinion, because you'll get ripped apart.
Totally.
Real quick.
True. And one of the parts of our community agreement or guidelines is that we don't meet to agree. You know, no one's there to say this is what you should think. It's we're sharing what we think and speaking from our own experience and your own story, and even in people who align politically, there's going to be it's going to be completely different all the time. So I could be at a table with someone who voted the exact same way for me as I did, and we're not going to agree on everything. And that's the beauty of actually having conversation about the issues to really undercover how you feel about it and why you feel that way. But yeah, self-care is really important in conversation about these issues. I work with someone who is completely opposite of me. He's way older than me, older white guy, and he just looks like my oppressor. Historically, he looks like it, and he calls me his political friend because he wants to tell me about, he's like, hey, did you hear this thing on NPR? And I'm like, yeah, and he only asked that so he can tell me what I should be thinking about it. And that doesn't feel healthy. So, I'm not going to engage in that conversation with him because it's not good for me to do that.
Really a dialogue.
It's not. So, sometimes you don't have to talk, and I think that's important.
Yeah, because if there's not at least a baseline of I respect you and I know that we have this common ground as human beings.
Yeah,
and,
at the very least.
We can connect.
Yeah.
And then I disagree with you, but I want to have a conversation about it. Yeah. That's really different from what you're describing.
Totally. And I often find that there's it's such a vulnerable thing to talk about these issues, and people get really defensive. So a lot of times they don't mean to come off aggressive or harsh, but in talking about how you feel and why you feel that way, it's like I said, it's really vulnerable, and you're opening yourself up to these people.
Yeah.
And people, it's easy for people to get put up walls and be aggressive and short, because they want to protect what they've known and how they've grown up knowing that stuff. So it can get really, you never know how these things are going to turn out.
Right.
But yeah.
Can we go back to, you mentioned the pink hats before?
Oh yeah.
Can we talk about that?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I went to the Women's March in Greenville that they had, and I had lots of feelings about the Women's March.
Me too.
Yeah.
Let's talk about them.
Yeah, that'd be good. So,
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
Why you are here. It was pulling teeth to get Janine here today, guys.
Okay, there was a lot of complication. I was at yoga, it went long, and then Lena wasn't coming, and then I was like, wait a second, and he's gonna be
where do you go to yoga?
And it's exactly what you were afraid it was going to be, but it's going really well.
Well, yeah, that's also true. I'm not good at talking to strangers. I was worried, but you're great. Lena's really good at talking to strangers.
Was I right or was I right?
Go to yoga as much as my roommate does yoga. Sometimes she's like, do you want to go?
Yeah.
So we did restorative yoga, which is basically you lay on the ground and people put birch oil on your face.
That sounds amazing.
Great.
The best kind of yoga.
I went to yoga before this. So I was like,
oh nice.
Maybe you were in my class.
Where do you go?
Yogalicious right downtown. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I've also been there a couple times. I hop in and try different yoga places every once in a while.
Yeah. But yeah. So I don't know if you saw the initial structuring of the Women's March, but they were going to call it the Million Women March.
Yeah.
And that, from the beginning, that obviously really...
Wait, what? Okay, enlighten me.
Well, the Women's March on Washington was originally going to be called the Million Women's March, or Million Women March. something like that. And they're like, this has already been done before. The Million Man March, organized by Black people for civil rights. So it just felt kind of like a slap in the face, like a.
I thought it would have just been a clever play on words.
Well, yeah, and I think that's what they.
If it was, yeah. And like if it was the first one ever, but I think like the fact that so many I don't think it was probably an accident.
No.
They were, which I mean, okay, I wasn't even really aware of the Women's March until like after they had dealt with that and fixed it. But I have kind of the same feelings on the Day Without Women because I was like, it was so impactful when it was a Day Without Immigrants because literally the administration is trying to remove immigrants from our country, and so that day was like, okay, well, if you guys get your way,
we'll do that. Yeah.
look, our country's going to be really messed up. And then it's like the Day Without Women was like, sure, women are really important and impact society, and like it's good for us to think about what if they weren't there.
Yeah.
But like nobody's trying to deport women.
Right. Yeah.
There's a lot I love about the movement, and there's a lot that I think is important about female voices, but it's also like, y'all do your own movement. Like, stop just stealing other movements.
Right. And it feels like, especially if the same people who are all for the Day Without Women weren't supporting the Day Without Immigrants, it feels like, it's like, well, yeah, okay, fine, but this is about us right now, and it isn't. If there's not the same solidarity, it just feels really gross. And I think that initially that's what happened with the Million Man March versus the Million Women's March, and it's like, were you there? Were you supporting this? And if you're not going to acknowledge the history and the struggle that are still happening, and not that there weren't women at the Million Man March, but it just felt kind of tone deaf that they were like, this is a really important thing, and without even talking about the history of it, not that I don't think that it was done out of any malice. It just was, I feel like they just didn't think critically about how this would affect people.
Yeah,
that comes off.
Tone deaf is a really good term for it. Nobody was like, we're going to co-opt this term from the civil rights and make it about us. But it's like, I mean, that right there, though, is the problem of like, oh, you guys, but you co-opted this term from the civil rights movement. And like, that's a problem. Yeah. And it is one of those things where like, I'll admit, like, I've had many tone deaf moments in my life, and like, still do.
Yeah,
and
all the time.
but it's
you're not perfect.
What? No, I know. I'm sorry to shatter your image of me. I am not perfect. But yeah, I think so on the one hand, it's like, well, and it was funny because my roommate just recommended this podcast to me to listen to, and I was like, so actually tonight when I go on this, can I just like actually hit play on this other podcast? So I'm gonna steal some of their ideas.
Do that. Well, cite your sources.
It's called the Liturgist Podcast, and it was, I think,
in MLA format.
I don't know how to do that about podcasts. When I was in high school, podcasts weren't a thing.
You're from Chicago, Chicago style.
I don't know how to say podcast. They weren't a thing when I was in high school. I'm old. Shoot, what was I going to say?
Something about a podcast. Stealing ideas.
Okay, hang on. But what was the idea? What were we just talking about?
Being tone deaf, women.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So one of the things that they were talking about on this podcast, it was a slightly different conversation, but they were talking about like representation and specifically like within a church context and like religious context, but talking about how like, it's been like a boys club, and like the people that were talking about it were specifically like in kind of the white evangelical subculture, and so like it's like white men, and so they had some conversations about like, certain churches were like, okay, well like men of any race are fine, but like can't deal with a woman, and then other words like anybody white is fine, can't deal with other races, and then there's like very few places where you kind of see like everyone in leadership is great. And so we're talking about how that's problematic and kind of the like steps that like this one certain conference had been taking. And so the woman, she's a black female author. Her name's Austin something, and I can't remember her last name. But she was talking about like, I went to this conference, and like there were all of these like white men on the panel, maybe like one black man, but like no women, very little diversity.
This was for a religious context?
Yeah.
Oh, like a pastoral?
Yeah, it was like church leadership
Okay.
conference of some sort. And so, like, she went back the next year after, like, having complained about it, and, like, there were some, like, women on the panel. Or I think they had, like, a women's panel, but it was all white women. And so, you know, she was talking about, like, obviously that's problematic because, well, not obviously, because nobody on the panel thought of it.
Yeah.
But, like,
Right.
it is problematic.
Yeah.
And then, like, the guy who was hosting the podcast was like, okay, but can we talk about, like, intention? And, like, can we talk about the fact that they, like, moved forward, like, and it's better than it was last year? And so I think it's a balance because, like, you know, as somebody who's, like, screwed it up a lot, I do really appreciate when people are like, okay, well, thanks for trying, but also you screwed this up.
Yeah.
But I also think, like, it's, like, not the responsibility of, like, the people who are not being given a voice to be like, hey,
Yeah,
excuse me, you know, and it's
exactly.
like, so I'm sure you can speak to that even more than I can, but, like, for women, you know, it's like, it feels like I shouldn't always have to be the one being like, okay, but did you think about including a woman?
Yeah.
Hi. Okay, that's a lot of dudes up there. Okay, excuse me. It's
Right,
like,
right.
you know, and I've had friends of color who have said things to me about that of like, okay, look, like, we've had this conversation a lot. I'm tired.
Yeah.
And I, like, it's been, I mean, really more recently than I wish that it was, that I've kind of, like, really understood that and talking about feminism and stuff and been like, yo, I'm tired. Can you just, like, read some stuff and figure it out?
Yeah.
But anyway, now I'm just doing that. But yeah, I think, like, that's with the women's march and stuff. It's like, that's cool. Like, I'm glad you all are doing stuff. I'm glad we're organizing. And good, you know, way to realize eventually and, like, change it. But
Yeah.
we've got, like, just so far to go.
And
in
it's
that.
it's like if from the beginning, if there had been inclusion and intersectionality in the organization of it, and it wouldn't have been a thing, you know, and that would really feel like to people who are wanting to be a part of the movement that they were automatically included from the beginning. Because I know a lot of people who were all for, you know, something like this, but they chose not to do it because of that and because of the hats. Am I allowed to curse on here?
Sure.
Okay. Or say, because, you know,
Say whatever
they're
the
called pussy
hell
hats,
you
so I didn't
want.
want to say anything offensive. Okay. Cool.
Doesn't somebody on one of our listeners make those?
Okay.
Wait, are you talking about the hats that have like
The
the?
little
The little pink,
ear
yeah,
hats.
the pink hats.
Oh yeah, one of our. She listens to this podcast. She's probably
Oh, cool.
listening right now. She makes them. Crotchets.
Dope.
Yep.
They got the ears. I was talking to her.
Pussy
I was
hats.
like, what is it? Pussy, looks like a pussy hat. She's like, no, that's totally what they are. They're pussy hats.
Cool. But even having, you know, that became like a sign of the march. You know, when you saw pictures of it, even without knowing what it was, you could see the sea of pink and you know, that you would know that it was a women's march. But the hats themselves are kind of, you know, non-inclusive because not all women have a pussy or have a vagina, or, you know, they feel like they're basing the movement on the genitalia or the gender identity of the people who are fighting for their rights, just like I am as a cisgender woman.
Yeah.
So it's like from the beginning, you know, these things just should have been considered to make it feel like a movement that everyone was a part of. And I also heard about people talking about how it was important to emphasize, you know, the female sex part of it, because of the struggle that women and women of color have been dealing with from the beginning, because they were women, because they were could reproduce, going back to slavery, and how, you know, their bodies were so used by, you know, slave masters and those things, and how it's been a battle to kind of reclaim that and to own their bodies. But it's even then, it's like that's wonderful, and I would never say, you know, don't identify with that, don't find strength, you know, despite this. But it's like the movement that I want to be a part of would acknowledge that, and acknowledge that trans women are killed, you know, way more than cisgender women, cisgender black women, you know, and so it's like, yeah, that's great, but I wouldn't, you know, I would rather use my voice to talk about them, and because even while acknowledging my own struggle, you know, so I didn't have a hat. I didn't do that because it just felt like it was unnecessarily gendered and binaried than I wanted.
Yeah.
So
I actually, I had to work during the march, and I was kind of going back and forth on like whether it was something I wanted to be a part of, because I think it was like one of those things where I agreed with a lot about it, but it's also like once you get that many people involved, then there's different people that have different ideas about what it means. So a bunch of my friends went, and if I hadn't had to work, I'm sure I would have gone. But I didn't go. So what was your experience like?
Mine was great. I didn't have time to get a sign. I got off of work and I went straight there. I couldn't dress up in anything particular.
Like, I'm just here, a woman, I'm mad.
Right.
Worried, concerned.
Exactly. But it was such a nice feeling, and this is I feel this way a lot at protests and marches. Just the visibility of it is meaningful, and to me in itself, just seeing that many people there together, even though, like you said, y'all might not be fighting for the same thing that I'm fighting for, but you're here, and that says something. So in that aspect, it was nice. Even then, it's still, looking at the numbers, it's like where, and I don't want it to be this, say this automatically, but it's like, where were you, why are you all going to be supporting things that I'm fighting for as well? Where were you at the Black Lives Matter marches? Where were you at, the No Ban, No Wall protests? It's like these things, it's hard to look at it and feel really positive when it's not, you can't see it reflected in other areas that need support just as much, if not more. So it's kind of a bittersweet thing. It's like, yeah, great, but there are other things too that, you could use your privilege for. Like, as a cisgender woman, I could be out there as a native-born American. I could be, it's like these are, I don't know. It kind of sucks looking at it and like, just wanting the same kind of turnout, the same kind of visibility, the same kind of news coverage as well about it. But you're absolutely right. Like, being there with people, it's like you never know if I'm standing beside someone who could actively be supporting things that oppress me, but we're here together,
it's like on some level, like, weirdly kind of cool, but then also like very depressing.
It really is.
I think and again, I'm sure that I have aspects that I do this in, but I'm with you where it's like, I've gone to Black Lives Matter protests, and I was working during the airport protest, but I gotta get time off. People are protesting too last minute, but I think, like, I went to Spartanburg had a march that was like largely based on the travel ban, but it was kind of also just like
love,
and if you have something to say, do it. I was like, okay, we really don't have a mission statement for this, but I'm gonna bring a sign about refugees. Okay, but I think it is one of those things where, I don't know, I guess, like, just kind of showing up at those things and then trying to have like cross-topic conversations, or like creating relationships with people who it's like, okay, you care about this, like, hey, I'm also going to this other thing, and like, do you want to come? I don't know how to.
It's tough.
Get people with me, and then like I've been feeling the thing lately where it's like, there's like literally always something to be mad about, and like, how do you kind of? I don't know. How do you have any sort of like productive anything? It's like you were talking about self-care is so important, and so like, how are you like out there on the streets making a difference, having these conversations, trying to like talk with people and help them see issues that they weren't thinking about, while also like not just being so sad all the time.
Honestly, ability is a lot about it. As a lot with it, I deal with anxiety and depression, and sometimes I can't. Sometimes I can't go to speaking down barriers and facilitate a conversation. It's just not. I'm just not well enough to do it. And that goes again what I was saying about activism. It's like however you feel, if you have the drive to be active in it, which oppressed people don't have to do that. You know, marginalized people
right.
don't have to be out there doing it. They
Right.
shouldn't have to. It's not their responsibility. But yeah, it just depends on if you're able to do it, and if you want to do it. But that's different for people who do have different aspects of privilege in their identities. Because it's like a lot of people say that you don't have, you know, you can't just say that you don't feel like doing it. You know, it's like that's not the same thing for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like how can you even survive and think within all these movements are going on, and how do you, especially if you can see, like I'm pansexual, I am polyamorous, I'm agnostic, and it's a lot of things that I feel like, you know, the LGBTQ marches, you know, it's like
just standing up for like my own self.
yeah, it's like
busy.
Me waking up and putting on my clothes to go work at Wells Fargo, this fucking huge corporation that's actively oppressing people, is enough for me some days. Like it's a lot for me to do that, you know, and that's okay. And I feel like I hate that people feel like they have to be on the front lines all the time. That's just not the case.
Yeah.
So. But if you, like, historically, I've been thinking, we talked about this at Speaking Down Barriers, about how movements are started and how, you know, people were really clinging on to the suffragettes, and, you know, you saw the articles about, and artist renditions of these suffragettes, you know, in the past, and it's like, what they did was great. No one would ever want to belittle what they did at all. And it's like, at some point, let's say Susan B. Anthony was like, hey, we really need to get things started for us. Women's rights are really important. Even if she sat there and was like, you know, we need to include these women of color as well, there had to be a division for her to say, you know, we have to abandon this so we can get our rights. Because if at one point she had to say, you know, women of color also don't have the right to vote. They've been working since they were, you know, forcibly brought here. And white women were wanting to have more jobs. So it's like there's a disconnect there. Like, women of color are saying, hey, we've been working our whole lives. We've been working since you brought us here. And you all are wanting to have more work. So like the movements have been different from the beginning. You know, black women of color have been like, yo, we don't want to be working, you know, in plantations. You know, we want to be able to have a family. We want to be able to take care of ourselves. We want to do whatever the hell we want to do. And, you know, white women, like, yo, we just want to vote and we want to have jobs, and that's great. But, you know, it's hard for me to celebrate the suffragette movement when my, you know, women who look like me back then weren't fighting for the same thing necessarily on the same time. And so it's, you know, it's, I wasn't there. I don't know what their plans were, but it's like, even if they had said, hey, you know, women of color are struggling harder than we are, what happened to that part of the movement, you know, historically? So it's, looking at the Women's March movement with that in mind, it's just like, is this for me? You know, what am I, you know, am I going to be represented here? But I did go, and I was like, you know, queer women of color have been on the front lines for forever, and I identify as a queer woman of color. It's, you know, I'm there for that reason. So.
And I mean, I think it's hard, you know, to say like, oh yeah, well, and if these people come out, then like this is it. But, you know, I think it's really good for people who feel like somebody like you, who you're like, okay, this is exhausting, but I feel like I've got it in me today. You know, because I think as much as like it's not your responsibility to be like, hey, white ladies, remember all this stuff back here where like the suffragette movement like actually wasn't helpful for me at all. You know, it's not at all your responsibility to do that, but you being there and having that voice and like bringing that up might help somebody be like, ooh. And so, you know, I think,
and that's what keeps me going sometimes. Like, you know, someone, maybe they haven't heard, I don't know how they haven't, but it's like, you know, I totally agree with that.
Like, yeah, I know, for me personally, I've had like so many friends who have just been so gracious and like, girl, like, you gotta think about this. So, you know, but I think maybe there is something, and especially with like social media, I think it's really interesting that there can be these different kinds of groups that are, you know, separately kind of working towards their own goals, but under kind of an umbrella. Like, there's a lot of different brands of feminism out there, and like for sure the mainstream like pink cat feminism is like white feminism. But I think there's queer feminism, and there's, you know, all of these other different branches of it that, you know, hopefully can like find that common ground in like what they do have in common, and talk to each other, and, you know, just, I don't know, understand kind of how to further all of those causes, because like ultimately, shoot, who said it? There's, you know, the quote, like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna butcher this. I've seen it so much lately, but basically the idea that like I'm not free until every woman. I think the quote's like, I'm not free until every woman is free, even if her shackles are very different than mine, or something like that. Which, you know, I think like you mentioned privilege before, and so I personally have been really wrestling with how to, like, okay, I've got privilege, like how do I use it, and how do I like show up and like not make matters worse by like not thinking all the way through an issue, but like, you know, how can I be a productive ally while also like knowing like this isn't necessarily like about me,
while also standing up for your own rights. It's a
right.
lot.
It's like I am oppressed, but like not as much as somebody else is oppressed. So like let's talk about my oppression, but then also let's not forget these guys over here.
It's
like,
it's so much,
you know. But
I think having the understanding that, you know, my oppression isn't the only oppression, you know, the only kind, the only anything. It's really, you have to have that to even be, you know, included in any kind of thing that I want to be a part of. Like, you know, I'm not going to want you there if you're not going to listen to me.
Right.
And like what you're saying about feminism, I used to, on my Instagram, I have like my stuff, my information, it used to say like intersectional feminist or feminist or something like that, but I changed it a little while ago to womanist, because that includes, it's predominantly black, woman of color centered feminism, and it's kind of saying, hey, feminism has been really whitewashed and it doesn't really speak to the issues that women of color deal with. But even then, womanism is also exclusionary in my mind, so it's like, you know, not only women of color have been oppressed, you know, queer women, trans women, non-binary people, it's like all of these people are also dealing with these same things in a way that I'm not, you know, that I have privilege in. So it's like feminism didn't feel right, womanism didn't feel right, because I think language is so important in movements to acknowledge, you know, the struggles. But now I guess I would just say intersectional activist, and I think saying activist is kind of a FU to people who say that activism is one kind of thing, but it has to be intersectional no matter what it is, and people thought that feminism wasn't that, and in my head, womanism feels like it's exclusionary too, so it's like, it's hard to include everyone in a thing, especially as a person who's not heterosexual and identifies as pansexual, like the LGBTQ. My own identity isn't in the letters. And that
that's so true.
And but then if you were to tack on LGBTQIA, all those things, it's like it's a long thing, but people need to feel included. You know, at the very least in this acronym, this umbrella, you know, group. So that's also a part of, you know, movements and activism, is like how to make people feel included in the verbiage of it as well.
For sure.
So that's a thing.
Well, and I think back to like what you were saying of your friend who does comics, and like that's not maybe the picture of activism that somebody thinks of, but I think is probably in the long run a much more impacting form of activism, because you know, if you see like yourself represented as like some sort of badass whatever, you know, like I just think, and that's something like honestly I'm super into all of the like Netflix original series, like
have you seen Love?
Honestly,
I haven't seen
it's on my list.
It's so good.
I honestly what?
No.
Not from me.
I mean, I don't think we said it, but that's cool.
Do you have something to say, Dennis?
Dennis, come say something. No.
Well, but
also, Master of None season 2 just got announced. Like,
I heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that. And like,
excited.
yeah, that
haven't
show's
watched it.
been awesome.
Go
'cause
watch
I think-
Love. Go watch it.
It's on my list.
Okay.
That one's on my list.
Go watch it now.
Yeah,
So good.
I mean, it doesn't really fall into the category of what I was about to
Nope,
talk about,
but it's still
I'm sure
great.
it's really good. But like, you know, I think there are a lot of shows like because you don't have to like get the network TV ratings on like these streaming services. There's just been like so much more art, number one, and like
Yes.
representation in these like streaming services shows, and just like better stories because like you know people are gonna watch 10 episodes at once, but like I watched like all of the Marvel shows. I'm loving because
They're
like
so good.
I mean I watched Jessica Jones first, and
Well,
I have never seen like
Iron Fist kind of
I haven't watched
so
that
far.
one.
The new one that just came out.
I
I haven't
Iron
seen
Fist-
it.
Jessica Jones is fantastic. Luke Cage is fantastic.
Yeah.
But Iron Fist fell short.
no.
Not terrible, just not Jessica Jones.
Yeah, Jessica Jones, I mean, honestly, I'm like the bad guy, and that is just so good. But I also loved how she was like this very, like, real, believable female character.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, you know, but also like badass. And so, you know, I just, with the exception of like, I mean, there are other shows,
I
but
think
like, sure.
I don't know.
She is, sure. But, you know, I, like, for me, watching that show, I was like, oh, this is cool. She's, like, really scared right now, you know, because I feel like you have these, like, female protagonists who are, like, kind of just acting like the stereotypical, like,
There's no
man,
depth,
but then she's,
yeah.
like, a woman.
Yeah.
And so it was, like, cool to see her, like, have these really...
What's the question? Sorry.
Okay.
How did feminism become a bad word?
Wait, can we talk about that in a second?
Yeah, finish with Marvel. Jessica Jones.
Yeah, like, for me personally, that one was cool because I feel like, I mean, obviously I'm not as cool as her and I'm not as jaded as her, but, like, I saw a lot of myself in that character in ways that I haven't in a lot of other female characters. And then to just see, like, just I mean, so that one for me personally, like,
Yeah.
I saw myself in, but then I have seen representation in, I mean, and I know there's a lot of shows out there that I probably just like haven't seen,
Yeah.
but you know, in like
Yeah.
these really like big blockbuster kind of shows, if that's a term for shows, which
Yeah,
it's not.
I know what you mean.
You know, just having this like diverse cast and like a nuanced, like actually human seeming character.
Yeah.
And also like getting to see inside of like worlds that I don't see inside of necessarily on like popular shows. Like I watched like Get Down, which is like, you know, that was just kind of this whole weird like fantastical like Moulin Rouge sort
Yeah.
of hip hop thing.
That's
but
cool.
you know, which is like a lot of the Netflix shows. They're all like in this kind of alternate realities. But
Yeah.
I don't know, just like
Yeah.
all that to say, representation's super important, and I think like Jessica Jones was a game changer for me,
Yeah.
and I imagine that there's like a lot
Yeah.
of other ones out there.
Totally.
Wow.
Yeah. I watched it Get Down like 2 episodes.
Nothing to do with that. So it's probably
does.
really good, but it's
It
like
does.
white people being white people.
No, well, yeah, yeah, but it's still like very human.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what that's my allure to it. It's just like it's frustrating in a way because I'm just like, oh, cringe. I've done that.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
a lot of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, if someone's like, you know, this network is remaking this show that I love, I'm like, I hope it's Netflix because it's gonna be
Yeah.
grittier and it's gonna, you know, like what you're saying about the ratings and they've just been doing really good things.
Yeah.
They're re-releasing DuckTales. I don't know if anybody saw that.
Really?
Yeah, DuckTales is gonna come back out. Also, Samurai Jack just got re-released.
I saw
Well, not
that.
re-released.
I saw
sequel.
that.
It's like 10 years later, and it's so good. Strange to see actual blood in Samurai Jack, but I'm enjoying it.
Killing people now.
So what was the question?
Yeah. So, I have some things about that. Yeah. I don't think it is a bad word. I do think that people have done a very good job. People who don't like feminism have done a very good job of doing their best to give it a negative connotation.
Yeah.
That's my personal opinion. I feel like that negative connotation was made by people who want it to have a negative connotation. That's just me.
Yeah, totally.
They kind of like stereotype the feminist into this short, messy, pink hair, good glasses, and feminazi sort of thing, and it just sort of, they created that, and that kind of bugs me, but it's also really smart on their part.
It's like also though that woman does exist. And
That woman does exist.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, that woman exists many times over, but that, like, they tried to make that the face of feminism and make it seem like a negative thing.
Yeah.
And I'm saying they. I mean, like, the people that we're marching against, essentially.
Yeah.
They sort of gave it that connotation. Did a very good job of it.
Yeah. And anytime...
That's my contribution to that.
Anytime you're acknowledging that a group has power, which in this case it's men, cisgender men, cisgender white, straight, Christian men, if you want to get really particular. When you acknowledge that someone has power, that has power, it's going to be difficult for them to relinquish that, especially if that's all they've known, and that society tells them that that's how it should be. So anything that challenges that or even questions it at all, it's going to be seen as a bad thing.
Yeah.
Even, if you, like, someone can say, yeah, my wife deserves to be able to do whatever, but can still be against feminist movements because they can acknowledge that someone close to them who isn't really challenging their power structure deserves to do this thing. But overall, it's like it's a scary thing just to look at something and think that it's going to shake up your whole existence and your whole identity. I think so, at least.
Yeah.
Well, that male patriarchal mentality of men thinking that they can dictate what women should be able to do and not do, and I'm going to get Texas. I'm going for you. I'm going to mess with Texas. I know that's ill-advised most times, but I'm going to do it. Texas.
Away. You gotta start running.
Texas lawmakers who try and dictate how women can treat their bodies when it comes to abortion.
Yeah.
I think it's bullshit.
Yeah.
I think it's bullshit. There was actually a great law, like a woman, in a satirical sense, just to point out the flaws of what the men were doing, tried to present a bill in which it would present a men with $100 fine every time they were caught masturbating, as it was like, killing potential life.
Oh my God, yes.
That's it.
I love it.
And I thought that was so genius and hilarious, and it illustrates this.
Planned Parenthood, and then you have to pass that law.
Exactly.
Right, and it illustrates this great point of like.
Or let everybody do what they want.
A lot of it though comes out of their religious beliefs, and I don't think enough people understand the concept of separation of church and state, and you cannot try and pass laws based on your religious beliefs, but then try and defend those laws by saying, well, you can't challenge my religious beliefs. But it's just very cyclical, and it's very aggravating. In Texas, you need to get it right, man.
Coming from South Carolina.
Right. Well, in South Carolina, you don't have to drive 7 hours to get an abortion.
True.
And
I also would say, like, that's
the lack of protection for women's rights that exists in that state is unnerving, and the fact that they want to make it a crime, no matter if a woman has been raped or if it was a product of incest or anything. The fact that there are many many, many white male lawmakers in that state who want to make it a legit felony to get an abortion. Just unnerves me to just such a visceral reaction out of me. It just is infuriating. And I'm a white male Christian, so I know people are gonna be like, well, you can't say shit. Well, I'm gonna say.
No, you can go say shit to your people.
Yeah, exactly.
Go talk to the other white Christian men and tell them this. But
most of the white Christian men that I talk to would agree with me. So
there you go.
Is it just me, or does it seem contradictory for women to think it's okay for men to be in charge? If they want that and they're wholly fine, don't hold them back.
yeah.
Read it one more time.
She says, is it just me, or does it seem contradictory for women to think it's okay for men to be in charge? If they want that and they're wholly fine, but don't hold you back.
Well,
I think
it's
maybe
okay
I'm not.
and think it is the only way. I feel like are different.
I feel like anybody
exactly.
anybody should be allowed to have power. Anybody, male or female. And in your household, if my household, mom calls the shots for sure. That's your own personal dynamic, and you got to figure that out with your spouse.
Yeah.
But in societal leadership, anybody should be allowed, should be able to have that power and influence. So,
Right.
I guess that's what I have to say to that. Maybe I'm not completely understanding what's being said there.
Yeah, and I want to go back to something that Dana said before about power structures, because I think that and back to that original question, because I think people started thinking that feminism was a bad word when somebody, Ethan was saying, they were trying to give it a bad name, and I think somewhere along the lines, feminism and dismantling the patriarchy became synonymous with man hating.
Yeah.
It's not
white Christian male hating.
Well, sure, but either way, feminism is not about hating anyone, and with that question of is it okay for a woman to think a man should have power, and it's well, I mean, I'm guessing what the question was is does it make sense for a woman to be
Hopefully they want
only male pastors and the man is the head of the household and stuff like that?
Well, hopefully they want the male individual to have a position of power based on his opinions and that their morals are in line, not because of his gender.
I mean, I think the biggest misconception about feminism is that it's a man-hating women should rule the world.
Yeah, they want to flip it instead of evening it out.
Yeah,
that's not it.
Just about equality. Feminism is simply the belief that all human beings, regardless of gender and sex, should have equal rights and opportunities. That's all. And so, I think that feminism got a bad name where because you were saying it involves that power balance does involve women getting more power and men having less power, and that's threatening if you have power. And that's the same reason why most of the people at a Black Lives Matter movement or rally are black, because white people are okay, but then if you guys have rights, then I got
that whole
power.
thing of well, it shouldn't be Black Lives Matter, White Lives Matter. That's not what you're
White lives
missing.
already matter.
Here's the point. Here's where you are. You missed it.
Right.
The point is, Black Lives Matter also.
Right, and it's
everybody's lives matter, but the whole Black Lives Matter thing is just coming out of, hey, there's a clear I don't know what the right word is, but there's a separation, there's a distance, there's some dissonance. Yeah, you have a head start if you're white, and then everybody should be right together with each other. Everybody, if you get pulled over, if I'm a white man and I get pulled over by a police officer, I'm just get my license registration, and it's all cool. Shit, I was speeding, sorry, I'll go about my day. Are you a little bit more nervous when you get pulled over?
I mean, every time. Every time. I even go so far as I'll pull up my phone and I'll get my camera out ready to record things, or I'll call someone and put them on speakerphone.
And that ain't okay.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be like that. That's what the whole Black Lives Matter thing is.
Right, and I think, like, that's the same misunderstanding with feminism. Like, I think with most movements, there's some resistance because it does, like, all the movement is saying is, like, hey, we're not equal, we should be.
Yeah.
But then, I mean, there is some, like, relinquishing of power from the people that, like, didn't earn it, but, you know.
Have it.
Maybe not a
Yeah.
relinquishing of power, just letting other people be on the same level as you
Look,
also.
if women have equal rights and become president, then, like, that's one less man who's president. So, like, you know, there's an
Well,
element of,
shit.
if I have all of the same opportunities that a man has, then I'm gonna take some opportunities and, like, a man's not gonna have them. And so, like, that's it, like.
So you think is that? Personally, I don't think that's where a lot of the dudes who are very much against feminism stem from. I think it just comes from a nearsightedness that they just can't get over.
Maybe, but I think that nearsightedness is probably kind of out of self-preservation, don't you think? Of, like, I don't want to have to, like, change my boys club, like.
I don't think they do it out of I don't want that extra competition. I think they just do it of I'm a man, I'm strong, that's how the world ends.
Well, right, but don't you think, like, on the underlying, like, they might
It's
not be
possible.
acknowledging
I've
it.
never really seen that. I don't. That might be a subconscious thing. That's not something that's really explicitly stated.
Well, right. But that's the whole, like, that's why I think, like, that's how feminism became kind of this dirty word. Because nobody's going to be like, I don't think women should have rights. But, like.
Some people do.
Okay, some people. But, like, that, like, society as a whole is not running around being like, women don't deserve equality.
Right.
But there is, like, a feeling of, like, if you're going to have all of the opportunities, then some of my opportunities are going to be threatened. And,
Sure.
like, or if you're going to have resources. I mean, it's like the same reason that poverty exists. Okay, that's a really huge overstatement. But, like,
we're gonna go,
as a metaphor, you know,
well,
like,
it
that's
is.
kind of.
I mean, geez, there's plenty of things that are in place in our society that keep poor people poor.
Right, but
Look
also,
at my
like,
job.
Right. But, you know, just, like, on a pure, like, resources level, like, we have enough resources in the world right now to, like, redistribute all the wealth, and ta-da, nobody's
people-
poor,
but
but
nobody's
also
gonna give up
nobody's
their money.
rich. And so that's the same thing
Well,
with
that's
privilege.
communism.
And, right. Okay.
That's-
I'm not trying to say that that's what we should do or shouldn't do.
Sure,
I'm using a metaphor,
Yeah.
and I think that, like, no
be careful the words you choose.
billionaire is gonna say, oh, maybe not no billionaire, but I'm just saying,
Well,
like,
Bill
we're
Gates
not.
will.
Yeah, some billionaire might be like, take all my money, but the reason that we still, like, whatever, we're not gonna, like, worldwide redistribute all the wealth, because then nobody will be poor, but nobody will be rich. And that's kind of the same idea with
And even
privilege.
if you
of,
do
like,
that, let's be honest, it'll
there's, like,
go back.
geopolitical
It'll go
politics.
back to being some people rich, because some people are just enterprising people.
True. I'm just making a metaphor.
Yeah,
but, like,
yeah.
with that, I'm just relating that to, like, why I think some people feel like feminism is a bad thing and why
Because
it's
it
threatened. Because
threatens
if
them.
women have equal rights, then men don't have more rights. And
Yeah.
right now, men have more rights. You know?
Yeah, but I think some Jews just think that, like, they have their God-given place in this world, and women have their God-given place in this world, and to change
because
that
that's
goes
the
against
world-
God.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
there's
yeah.
a lot in there. Yeah.
That's true. I mean, there is, like, there are some religious structures and stuff too, but I think, like, at just, like, a very basic level, I think,
Maybe
like,
it's
giving
that.
equal rights is threatening to the people that have privilege.
Yeah.
Like,
And it's easier to say, no, they're actively hating us than saying, yeah, than listening. It's easier to say this is a bad thing than acknowledging the harmful system in itself. So
Yeah.
right. And then it's, you know, you can also be like, well, and maybe, you know, maybe you're like, well, this is my God-given right is sort of a way to justify it, you know, because, like,
I
you
don't know.
see
Maybe
this.
I just don't think like one of those assholes, so it's hard for me to.
Maybe, but I mean, there probably are ways that you benefit from
Oh,
being
there's
a
tons
man.
of ways. I'm
And, like,
a
wouldn't
white
that kinda
male.
suck if you had to give them up?
Yeah,
Yeah.
But
like,
I want
there's something-
everybody. I'm not going to give it up. The thing is not giving up that, and this is my thing. It's like I don't want to give up my rights. Like the whole equal pay thing. Like somebody challenged me. It was like, Ethan, if there were people in your office who were getting paid less than you, would you take that pay cut to make sure that everybody was getting equal pay? I said, no, I wouldn't take the pay cut. I want them to be paid as much as me.
But what if
it's
it's
not
a zero-sum game?
It's not
What if there aren't that
sacrificing.
many resources?
So Blair mentioned that when she was in the military, as a sergeant, she received, I guess, less respect than her male counterparts, even from her subordinates.
Yeah.
And she said that as a firefighter, she said, I'm constantly hit on at fire scenes and not taken seriously, though I have more experience in many of them.
Yeah, and that's just kind of a male dominance mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I'd
like-
say a lot of. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that just comes out of a thousands and thousands and thousands of years of being ingrained in our head that women are objects.
Yeah, it's like being male
Yeah.
is always the superior thing, whether it's
Right.
like rank in case of the military, job experience, tenure, all of that stuff. It's like being male is always going to be the perceived as being the trump card. Oh,
Like the, oh gosh,
oh God.
the 45 card.
The 45 card.
Yeah, and I think like it's not always malicious is the thing. Like I think
No.
I was listening to an interview of this woman who is in she's like a sound engineer. She like travels with bands and does their sound and is like the sound guy. And she said like, you know, the guy well
Sound
yeah,
gal.
but so
Yeah.
she like calls herself like the sound guy, and the guy that was interviewing her was like, so do you feel like resistance from, because like it's almost an entirely male dominated field, and she's like, you know, guys aren't like, oh, I don't think you can do this because you're a woman or anything, but it is this feeling of like, you know, they've got their like guy jokes and they're like this kind of, you know, just like boys club mentality of like, we're gonna be crude and we're gonna just like locker room talk, yeah. You know, and that like, oh, well now we can't do that anymore. And so, you know, I think you get that in male-dominated fields, and you get that in even just like a male-dominated company of like, well, she was really qualified, but we didn't go with her because like I don't think she would fit the environment.
We're gonna
that
have
we
to watch
here.
ourselves around her. We're gonna have to police ourselves around her.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, I don't think that's like malicious or that in at least explicitly malicious, and I don't think that it's these guys being like, I don't think you can do the job because you're a woman. I don't want to work with you because you're a woman. But it is the idea of like, because I'm a man, my comfort, or not even because I'm a man, but like, you know, just men kind of putting their comfort first because society lets them, and society has already naturally created this space where they can exist as they want to, and then like bringing a woman into that threatens it. And so, you know, I think it's a lot less like just good old boys running around being like, we hate women and we don't think they're smart. And I think it's a lot more just like society's created these spaces that are very male dominated, and there are a lot of justifications for not letting women in.
Sure.
And I mean, you could say that for any oppressed group, but like I think, you know, we're just like, oh well, they're not going to fit with our office culture, you know, and it happens all the time.
And it's like, it's a pretty narrow idea about what women and men and what they're into, because like I could be right beside the locker room talk. What if I like fart jokes? What if I want to be crude? You know, it's like, so it assumes a lot about what women like and what, you know, what it means to be a woman and a man respectively. And that's a really harmful thing, I think, as well, that it's like, this is a male space, but what if I'm a man and I like makeup, and you know, it's just like so many things that it's like, I mean, I understand that, you know, you feel like you have to protect this space because society told you have to be this way as a man, you have to be into these things and these things only, and this person will threaten that even though you don't really know how you agree. So like masculinity and what it means to be a man, it's like it's so woven into it that it's so hard to even say, like in her case with the military, and she's probably like, you know, not even given a chance to show that she's into the same things, or to have her self-respected in this space, because it was already assumed that she's not going to be into what they're into.
Right.
She's not going to be as good. She's not going to be just not even that they're just like, oh, this woman. It's just like society says this is not your space, so we're not really going to respect you in this space, even without even having to think about it. So.
Yeah, and I think like you touched on something really important that like when I say feminism, I also that encompasses like gender equality for me.
Yeah,
because it's like
sure,
feminism
totally.
is also for men. Like feminism
Absolutely.
also exists so that like maybe you like fart jokes, maybe Ethan doesn't like
Yeah.
fart jokes, you know.
Exactly.
And so like in like spaces just need to be inclusive for all people, and so like in some cases that means like, well, if this woman isn't going to fit your office culture, maybe like your office culture needs to shift a little bit. But also like, are you sure everybody's on board with your current office culture? You know, and like, just let people express themselves however they want to.
Right.
And I think that in some ways the feminist or womanist or intersectional activist movement, you know, like creates a space for us to be like, okay, like, you know, there's always work to be done. So,
Absolutely.
like, maybe, you know, the suffragist movement was like, okay, that was something, but what about people of color? And then, you know, like, now we're kind of starting to think about, okay, well, we have to think about women of color. And, like, okay, but what about non-binary? Like, you know, and so I think there's always something else. And what it comes down to is, like, all spaces should be safe for all people.
All people.
Yeah.
I'm a peopleist. I'm a peopleist.
No, Terry's welcome.
Yeah.
I don't know who Terry is. But as long as he's not threatening
What about
anybody.
Jerry? Fuck Jerry.
You have Instagram.
That's a great Instagram account.
Too.
It's one of my also
I
cool
don't
with no
remember what
job.
we were actually supposed to talk about.
We
Do you have
pretty
any
much covered it.
topics?
Do you ever do? It's sort of like Fuck Jerry, but it's girl with no job. Have you ever?
I think I've seen it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I pretty much follow like my friends and like musicians, and everybody's at South by Southwest right now. I wanna
Yes,
go.
and it's making me upset.
A lot, probably.
About as much as it's gonna cost to go to Mississippi.
All the musicians I follow on Instagram. They're all there.
I was just jealous. I was even.
Yeah. I want to go to all the things.
My friends who went to Okeechobee, I was mad at them too, because everybody I wanted to see was playing at Okeechobee. Okeechobee Music Festival.
But what is it?
It's in Florida. It's a music festival. Like they had the Revivalists and like also Shaky Knees is gonna be awesome. I do want to get tickets to that, but it's like $100 and something bucks for tickets.
High Water Festival's in like a month and I'm not going.
Aww. But I think I'm just gonna get a Saturday ticket because the Revivalists are on that Saturday. It's still like $99.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think we've covered a lot of it. I think I've successfully plugged.
Hey, come to the Songwriter Showcase. It has nothing to do with feminism. But people will be there.
So
Songwriter Showcase, March 18th, this Saturday, 4 p.m., Morgan Square, music. I'll be there. It's gonna be great. I went on TV a lot this weekend about it this week. What? Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. It's part of a multi-week series from the
Also,
Coffee Bar.
yeah, there's also going to be Up City Block Party tomorrow night to kick off Patty's Day. So from 3 to 10, do the block party. Then after that, go to Laney's because that's where everybody else will be.
And then when you're waking up around 4
Like,
p.m.,
literally everybody.
stumble over to Morgan Square.
Literally, yeah, it'll be a shambling over to.
Yeah. If you wake up in a park, just walk on over to Morgan Square.
Right, and listen
Crowler
to.
House will be there.
So
They'll be
it's
selling beer.
Una, George
Una
McDougal.
George McDougal.
Who else?
Zach
Parks.
Tyler Monroe.
Tyler Monroe.
3 fabulously famous. Not fabulously famous.
Fabulously
talented.
fabulous.
Soon to be famous, maybe.
Hopefully.
Artists.
All goes as planned.
Well, I guess
This is their big break.
Speaking Down Barriers has a community forum every first Monday of the month. And we do it in Greenville and Spartanburg, so you can find out information on Facebook. We also have spaces for just white people to talk about issues that white people face and how oppression and white supremacy works around them. And we also have a space for just people of color, just black people. And it's just like, you can find all that information on Facebook, like I said, or speakdownbarriers.org. Yeah, if you care about talking about this kind of stuff, we do it every month. Lots of different events and book readings and a lot of information about literature that talks about the historical aspects of it all. So yeah, always something out there.
There's a book club that meets.
Yeah,
like the Hub City Book Club, right?
It's called Reading for Transformation. Every month. Yeah. You said Moody Black? You said Moody Black? Yeah. Yeah, he's always around. Yeah. Yeah. He's awesome. Yeah.
I'm always like closing up at the coffee bar and like mopping. I'm like, shoot, there's a book club tonight, but by the time I'm done mopping, they're gonna be gone.
Yeah. It's good stuff out there.
Okay, I don't think I actually realized the pattern of first Monday. That's gonna be a lot easier to like remember stuff. I can do that. I was like, shoot, I see the event like a week before and I'm already scheduled to work.
Yeah.
That's good. Cool. Yeah. Your announcement was way more on topic than mine. It's like, I don't know, come out for music.
No, but hey, people are there, so feminism is going to be involved in some way.
That's true. Yeah, art's important.
Yeah.
I don't think there's going to be any like particularly feminist songs performed, but you know, there's going to be a lady there doing some art.
So that, yeah.
Because hashtag
that's it.
Equality.
Yeah.
All right, anybody else have anything to say?
I got nothing.
Are we done? Bye.
Bye.
I'm going to Landis now. Yeah, this was Hubcast, episode 27. Yeah. Once again, come to Growler House. It's great. Get that St. Patty's Day special. It's so good.
And get their beer on Morgan Square on Saturday.
And go to Morgan Square on Saturday. Thank you. Thank you, Ada.
Of course.
And Janine.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Sorry about the drama.
Yay.
Miss you, Lena.
Yeah, Lena, get back on the podcast. You don't need to be eating dinner with your family. Gosh.
Shade.
No, but seriously, that's a valid excuse. If you're ever supposed to be on this podcast and you have family that's like, you need to have dinner with us, that's fine. That's fine.
Are we still live?
Don't let us know that
I found out through Snapchat, so that is true.
Morgan Square. 4 p.m.
All right, well, we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye. Dennis says you're cute.
Turn us off.
Bye.
Elbow, elbow, wrist, wave.
Thank you for being here.